and Lords podcast.
Welcome to the Lord's Minute, our quick hit video series where we break down all the biggest happenings in gaming and beyond. I'm your host, Ty Swinson, writer for Lords of Gaming, and with me today is the editor and chief of Lords of Gaming, Josh Redding. This week, we're discussing the new Steam Deck announced by Valve. So we're going to kick things off with Josh. What are your initial reactions?
Well, my first reaction is there's a lot of inputs on this thing. It seems like they took a kitchen sink approach and said, oh, people like a D-pad, put a D-pad. People like twin sticks, put twin sticks. People like touchpads, put touchpads. Like there's 4 face buttons on here. There's, the 6 back paddles or back paddles plus the top triggers. Like there is a lot of ability to put inputs into whatever games you're playing. My first instinct is it looks slick.
Right.
The hardware looks really like tightly made. Obviously we haven't, nobody's had hands on of it. It was just announced, an hour ago, but I think it looks pretty jazzy. I'm really not sure how the 2 sticks, if you haven't seen the controller, it looks kind of like a Switch. So there's a large widescreen screen in the center of it. There's a D-pad in the top left corner, and then there are thumbsticks in the top kind of right and left corners of the screen. And then the D-pad is on the outside. And then there's 2 kind of, I don't know, thumb-sized touchpads directly underneath the sticks. And I wonder what the dimensions are of this and how it's going to feel my hands reaching up to get those sticks. I love the offset triggers of the Xbox controller. I think it's far superior to the PlayStation controller. But I almost think that like the touchpad and the stick should be flipped on here. It just looks like it's a long reach,
right?
Even for me, I'm a big guy.
Right. And you mentioned the Switch. Obviously, whenever handheld consoles come to the conversation, you can't help but mention the Switch and Nintendo. They've been very successful when it comes to the handheld department. And the announcement of the Steam Deck is kind of auspicious as the pre-orders for the new OLED Switch model went live today. And when you look at the Steam Deck for the dimensions on what it's offering for the screen, it's offering that 7-inch screen. And Valve has described it as it does anything that a PC can do. Anything a PC can run, you can install on here. It runs everything at 720 natively, and it's running a lot of games like Control at stable FPS. And you can hook it up to a mouse and keyboard and a monitor and play it like that way. And the seamless experience between a traditional desktop PC and this is mind-blowing to me. And the different price points that are offering as well, with the base 64 gigabyte storage model, that's starting at $399, just $50 more than the Switch Pro or Switch OLED. Sorry, Pro.
Well, and I wonder if the people over at Valve were just like sweating as they're waiting for Nintendo to make their announcement. And then when the Switch OLED came out, and it's such a, I don't want to call it disappointment, but it kind of feels like a huge disappointment if they kind of just went, all right, like
right.
we're off to the races. The 3 different models that are coming out, I'm in the UK, so we have a 349. You have to let me know how the prices are different in the States, but we have a 349 pounds model for 64 gigs, 459 for a 256 gig, and then a 569 for a 512 gig. And it also comes with some minor differences otherwise, but I wonder about those storage requirements, because 64 gigs for, Steam games, Switch games are optimized to run on smaller, I guess, smaller hard drives.
Right.
But it's like Cyberpunk is not going to run on a 64 gig internal storage. Like that file is huge. So like, I'll be curious to see, if they ever release sales figures. Like, I think if you're looking at this and you're kind of on the hardcore gaming side, like this doesn't start at 349. It really starts at 459.
Right.
And that 349 model seems like it's trying to directly compete with the Switch for, smaller indie titles. But I wonder how they will differentiate between these things on the Steam store. You just say, sorry, Control is 100, or Call of Duty is 114 gigs. So sorry, you can't
Right.
play this on your handheld.
That's a very good point because the Steam Deck is going to be running natively an updated version of the Steam OS, and they've really pushed for this seamless experience between a traditional desktop PC and the Steam Deck. But if you have those bigger sized games transferring over, and it's great that your progress can be saved whether or not you're on the Steam Deck or on the PC, but if it's still the same size, 64 gigabytes, even with their SD card option for expanding storage, is going to be very hard pressed for people to be able to enjoy multiple games. I like that. So I'm interested to see if there is going to be a way for some of the PC games to have an optimized version for the Steam Deck.
Well, this isn't the first time that we've seen kind of PC manufacturers try to break into this space. I mean, Razer has its like its own version of this kind of thing. There are a couple other ones that whose names are escaping me right now. But to see Steam come out with their own proprietary hardware, it kind of reminds me of maybe 5 or 6 years ago. They had the Steam boxes
Mm-hmm.
that they were kind of pushing as like these are dedicated, approved by Valve, like PCs for games. Um, but I think that the Switch has shown that there's a huge market for handheld gaming that still exists, and Sony and Microsoft seem wholly uninterested in pursuing that. Um, and from a hardware perspective, obviously Microsoft has their xCloud service that is kind of their long-term plan for this. But from a hardware perspective, neither company, I mean, both of them kind of got kicked out of it with the failures of Sony Xperia
Mm.
and the Microsoft Windows Phone. So Valve has a much better hardware track record in terms of their VR headsets and in breaking into kind of these new niche markets. So I think that they kind of, it's a weird place. It's kind of, Valve has got to be such a weird place to work right now. Like,
Mm-hmm.
people who think of Valve, I mean, from my generation, think of Half-Life and
Right.
Portal.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, Valve now is none of those things. It's live service games of Dota, and it's hardware in terms of um the Steam, or the what's their VR hardware, not the Oculus, but whatever, the HTC Vive partnership with HTC, and now this. So um it's Valve is just a really curious company, and I can't wait to see how pre-orders go for this, and if they release pre-order numbers, which I think will be really telling. If a week from now, if we see, we have 1 million pre-orders or 500,000 pre-orders, I think anything under 100,000, if we don't, I think they won't talk about anything under 100,000. Um, because I think that would be kind of a slap in the face, to be perfectly honest.
Right. Yeah, I have high hopes that this does do well. I'm excited to see technology expand when it comes to making things more convenient and portable, especially for the Eastern markets where portable gaming is very huge over there. And to see how this is evolving and growing. Valve did mention that they're going to have an official proprietary dock to go with the Steam Deck. Whether or not that'll be at launch is still up in the air, but with its USB ports, it will have HDMI 2.0 capabilities along with an Ethernet jack with it.
So, how interested are you in buying one?
So that's a good question. If I had just a gaming cash set aside, I don't know. I don't know if I would rather invest in a Steam Deck or put that toward a proper desktop PC, because for me personally, I currently own one of the base Switch models, and it does not get played that much. As far as gaming on the go, for me, I don't do it that much. I think that if you are um, more of a hardcore gamer who enjoys gaming on the go, say you play your Switch all the time, then this might be enticing for you. As far as Western markets, Eastern markets, I think this is very enticing for them. But for people who mainly do their gaming, whether it be mobile or through the Switch, I don't know how enticing something like this would be to them.
When you got to wonder if Valve kind of is running up against a time constraint here because xCloud is coming. You know,
Yes,
it's
that too.
already like in beta testing, and like 5G rollout is getting more and more pervasive in the United States and
Mm,
Europe. And so like you got to wonder how much longer will there be a market for high end mobile hardware if xCloud can do what it says it does, which, you know, we've had people, one of our writers at Lords of Gaming, he lives in Croatia, and he's done some of the testing for xCloud. And so by all accounts, like it works.
mm,
I haven't had a chance to get hands on with it, but you got to wonder, is it worth it to spend $400 on a handheld like this,
right.
where it has no exclusive games? Like it's not like Nintendo where you're really buying it not because it's a, you know, it's a handheld PC. You're buying it because you want to play Mario, you want to play Zelda, you want to play
For the
Metroid.
IPs.
And so it then comes to wonder like, does this compete well against my phone with a $100 Razer controller that I can pop my
Hmm.
phone into, get the same dual stick layouts running xCloud?
Very true. Very true. It's
I
going
don't
to
know the
be
answer to that.
exactly. We're only gonna have to wait and see how things shake up, but it's definitely going to be interesting coming down the line.
One last thing on this real quick
Hmm.
is there are currently the lawsuit going on between Epic and Apple
Oh, keep forgetting
loading
that's still a thing.
loading different hardware stores onto mobile devices. And I gotta wonder what the result of that is. And you know, will we see an Epic Game Store launcher
Mm,
on this on these Steam controllers? Because you know, that's the fate of that is being decided as we speak in courts, at least for the United States. So uh that's something to keep an eye out with too, is, you know, will this right now, this is the Steam deck, but will we see a side-loaded Microsoft store or Epic Games store or,
hmm.
you know, Origin, or, you know, take your pick of side stores?
Right. Yep. All I can say is that for anyone who might be even an inkling interested, keep your eye on this one, see how things shake up. Definitely when it launches and see if we get those sales numbers. But this has been the Lord's Minute. Thank you so much for joining us. We are here every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at lordsofgaming.net. I'm Ty Swinson here with Josh Redding, and this has been the Lord's Minute.